Whew, it looks like next-gen hopefuls can breathe a collective sigh of relief, as Sony is apparently staying the course. They will have PlayStation 5 exclusives at launch, games that can only be played on their newest, latest box. What's going on, everybody? It's GhostRobo. This comes from Jason Schreier, frontman over at Kotaku. We're going to get into all the details in a minute, but first, this comes a day after Microsoft stated, hey, we're not doing true next-gen exclusives. Our first-party output will be placed across our family of consoles, so whether you own an Xbox One, an Xbox One X, you choose to get a Series X, or you may even have a PC and no Xbox at all, you'll be able to play our first-party output for the foreseeable future. For 1 to 2 years, there won't be any Xbox Series X exclusives. Now, some people cheered and raised their hands into the air and said, this is awesome, I don't have to upgrade. I can play the new games on the box I've already bought. And then some people like myself said, wow, that's kind of a bummer because inevitably these games won't be able to push things to the brink, and what's the point of a new box if there aren't games that you can only play there? I understand upgrading for the sake of resolution and frame rate, but that's not so fun. Consoles are exciting because they house the best experiences in gaming, and if you can go back a half step and another half step and play them on your original launch day Xbox One, that is nice and consumer friendly, but is it as fun or as forward momentum moving as maybe a next-gen turnover should be? But alas, Sony is apparently doing what they've always done and will have a lot of cool PS5 experiences that you need the new console for. Now, PlayStation 4 has been insanely successful for them, and I think there's a little bit of a different strokes for different folks scenario here, given how the final year of PlayStation will shape out. But to get into the specifics, Jason Schreier on his podcast talked about there are PlayStation 5 exclusives for launch. He knows some of the launch lineup. He said he's not ready to reveal what the titles are because he wants to do a full report on that. So it sounds like it's coming in the near future. Heck, we may get it soon because if all the rumors and kind of general mentality is to be believed, a PlayStation conference should be coming up next month.
I've heard some of like the PS5 launch titles. I won't say them yet because I'm probably going to try to do some sort of report on that stuff in the future. But those will be PS5 only. Some of the stuff I've heard about that is PS5 only. And then I haven't heard anything about Xbox first party games, but I'm sure their stuff is going to be as usual, like on as much stuff as possible. Actually, they already said Halo Infinite is going to be cross-gen. So Microsoft, I'm sure, will be much less about exclusives.
Now, what's extra interesting about this is that this episode of Kotaku Split Screen aired 5 weeks ago, and Schreier talks about not only PlayStation having exclusives of their own, but Xbox's strategy to spread the love across their family of devices. This is well before Matt Booty came out and officially stated Microsoft's plan, so Schreier clearly in the know, and I think he can be trusted. But it's really good that someone in the know and someone that has a reputable track record is saying, you know what, they are going to have games, and that's what I felt as well. Sony is playing a different game. They're fighting a different battle. Microsoft going with the Game Pass, xCloud, get their stuff on as many devices as possible type of path, and that's okay, and it works for some people. But I love next gen, and I love that Sony is going to bring us the latest, greatest, best experiences that are only possible on PS5. Not only possible on the Sony side of things, but only possible on the newest Sony thing. And yeah, it will cost a lot, but man, your investment will feel worth it because there's games that you can only play there. Imagine buying a $500 box and then realizing you could have just spent $59.99 and played Halo Infinite on what you already own. To me, that would be kind of a bit of a bummer. But I do think that they've set themselves up for a different approach for a while now, and I think 2020, even preceding the launch of the new consoles, is just the same. Sony is planning to have a landmark year. They are going to whisk away the PS4 in fine fashion with fireworks and pizzazz. Perhaps even the best titles the console will see. You've got The Last of Us 2 launching in May, Ghost of Tsushima following up shortly after in the summer, Dreams, and who knows what other surprises they may have. It could be one of the boldest, best years for PlayStation. Their exclusives are hammering home the point that Sony is the place to play for console gamers. Now, what will Microsoft have this year leading up to Halo Infinite? It doesn't sound like much. There have been rumors and scuttlebutt saying that Microsoft has a pretty slow year, saving things for the launch of the new console, which is odd because now that launch seems to be not as important given that the games will be playable across the family of consoles. Maybe they would have been better served to spread things out. Gears 5 was a really good game, and Microsoft has gained significant ground with Game Pass, but they don't have that first-party output and oomph to say, hey, you can trust us, these exclusives are worth it. And I think that's where Sony has an advantage, and why it makes sense that they're continuing to focus on that advantage. And it makes sense, as Jason Schreier is stating, that they do have exclusive games for PS5. He also notes that cross-gen titles will be rampant amongst third-party, and I think that's to be expected. We've seen that recently. We've seen that in the current generation. It's just odd to me that the first-party games will be playable on a console that released many, many moons ago. You know, the last next-gen, the last true next-gen from Xbox 360, Xbox One was ages ago. And maybe they don't view it the same because there was an Xbox One X and a PlayStation 4 Pro, but I view it as well over enough time. I'm ready for a new console, and I'm ready for games that have a different box and a different look and a different feel. And maybe they still will play great. Jason Schreier also talked about how Xbox, their path allows them to have multiple consoles and not cause too much chaos, because since it will need to scale from Xbox One up to Xbox Series X, it is okay if they have a lower end model. It's okay if they have a Series S or a Series 1 or a Series Z or whatever they want to call it, because the games are already needing to be scaled, and they can just tweak the resolution, mess with some sliders, and get things ready to go for a litany of devices. So they can give you a, quote, next-gen experience for maybe $300, $400 with their smaller, lighter box that doesn't do anywhere near as much as the Series X, but still is a quote-unquote next-gen console, because the games are not exclusive to next-gen. At least that's how I understand it. At least that's what makes sense to me. And maybe scalability will prove to be Microsoft's greatest strength, or maybe it'll prove to be their kryptonite. Maybe they've decided that they can't play the same game as Sony because their first-party output just isn't as stellar, and Sony says, you know what, we can do this. I just wonder what that console gap is going to look like when holiday 2020 rolls around, and you can grab a PlayStation 5, which has a title like Horizon Zero Dawn 2, and it can only be played there, and it's the best-looking, best-playing, fully realized next-gen experiences, and Microsoft says, hey, you don't have to buy it. That's consumer-friendly, but is it forward-thinking? Now, maybe it's forward-thinking in a way that I can't even really fully come to terms with yet, but to me, it doesn't seem to be effective in terms of marketing your new box and getting people on board. At some point, you are going to have to transition. I don't think the Xbox One can exist forever. I don't think it's powerful enough of a machine. I think they do need to move from it. It's just going to be a very interesting scenario. You know, I will buy both because I just love it that much, but plenty of people can buy a PS5 to take advantage of those games and then just keep their Xbox One or Xbox One X to play Halo Infinite, Hellblade 2, and whatever else releases. That seems to be the most sensible decision. Now, you don't have to buy a PS5, but if you want to play the best single-player games, you want to play the best adventures, the ones that are made just for next-gen, Sony's going to hammer that point home. This is the true next-gen, the place to play our games. Only play on PS5, and that might sound like a bad thing to some people and some players. It might make your wallet weep, but it will make your imagination soar, because this experiences should, in theory, be a lot better. Now, I peg Horizon Zero Dawn 2 as a likely candidate. It also is important to remember that Herman Holst, who used to helm Guerrilla, is now the head of PlayStation Worldwide Studios, and he is probably in charge, at least to some degree, of really helping formulate that lineup, at least having significant input. And what better way and what better reason to make him the head than the success that Guerrilla has had and the success that their engine has had. That's a gorgeous engine. You saw the collaboration between Kojima and Guerrilla to work to get Death Stranding looking marvelous. Taking that to a console that has so many more teraflops and so much more power, imagine what they could do. Guerrilla has done fantastic work in the past. They were viewed as a pretty successful developer with Killzone, but it really took things to another level once Horizon Zero Dawn entered the scene. That was a phenomenal game, got some Game of the Year nods, had a great expansion, beautiful open world, creative gameplay, pretty solid story. If they can build upon that, HZD 2 will be a contender to Halo Infinite, especially because it'll probably look better and it'll probably do some things that Halo Infinite isn't capable of doing, given that it has to scale. Now, I hope that the scalability isn't as dire as maybe I'm thinking it to be. Jason Schreier seemed a little more confident that maybe it wouldn't cause as much of a problem as some people are anticipating. I've seen a lot of people, though, say that they do think that the multi-tiered approach from Microsoft will impact their games. I wonder how it affects third party. We'll have to wait and see. But I do know that a PS5 launch lineup that has games just for PS5 makes me much more likely to buy that box. Let me know in the comments down below if that changes your plan. Even if you're an Xbox faithful, if you're excited about next gen, if you're excited for 2020 to bring in a new era of gaming, do you need to grab the box that has games you can play other places, because think about it. You'll be able to play more games if you buy the PlayStation. You'll be able to play more games. You'll be able to play more of the Game of the Year hits. You'll be able to play more of the most talked about titles. You'll just have access to everything. If you're going to spend money, you might as well get the PS5. If you're not going to spend money, then fine, don't spend money and just play the quote-unquote Xbox Series X games. Oh, they also work on your Xbox One. You're good. You can save money and spend it on games. And I think that's totally valid. I'm not trying to criticize or downplay the fact that that's a nice consumer move. And the business play is that they're looking towards Game Pass and xCloud and all that as a service to boost their profits and their margins, not so much the console. But I don't know that trying to abandon that already before you launch makes much sense. And transparency is everything, but I don't know why they said it. I really don't. Can't wait to see what Sony has in store for us. HCT2, what's the one game you want most for the Sony lineup? Maybe we'll talk about that in a future video. I'm super excited to see what Jason Schreier puts together in terms of what they have for that launch lineup. I wouldn't doubt that Assassin's Creed is part of it. That's a third-party title, but I bet Ragnarok is a part of it. Ubisoft would love to hit that. It was a big gain for them, when they've done such things in the past, and I really also think Horizon gets there. But who knows what else Sony could cook up. If they see a chance to really get some things going and develop an early lead, it could be a just absolute hammering in terms of launch lineups. But we'll have to see that in a little bit. Until next time, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Hope you're enjoying the next gen videos. It's getting exciting that this is really starting to pick up steam. Last year, we heard rumors, we heard some official facts, we got some details on specs and ideas and concepts, but now it's really coming into view, and we're starting to have that picture be a lot less blurry. I cannot wait for the holidays. I cannot wait for the games, both before, during, and after this new cycle. So stay with me. I'll have you covered until that time. Thanks again for watching. Drink some hot chocolate. Be good to yourself and others out there. Until next time, we'll see you all later.